Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We have one person that's requested to address the commission. I want to call the individual's name. If you would, please come up and give your address, your name and your address, and if you would, please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. We'll have a buzzer that goes off. Hopefully you'll be able to hear that. And if you're not through within your 3-minute time period, I'll politely ask you to wind your remarks up. And just a reminder to all the commissioners, I know this is a different environment for us. We're going to have to pass the microphones, but all those microphones are hot, so they'll be hot the whole time. So you want to give y'all that heads up. Ms. Diane Larkins.
Hello, my name is Diana Larkins. I live at 300 Little Hope Road. I'd like to thank Mayor Durrett and County Commission for allowing me to speak tonight. I've lived in Clarksville since 1967 when my family moved here and my father, Dr. Boyd, started his family practice. I've seen this town grow immensely since then. I looked at some plans for smart growth for cities and found recommendations that one, growth should create walkable neighborhoods, foster distinctive, attractive communities with a strong sense of self, and preserve open space, farmland, natural beauty, and critical environmental areas. Highway 12, 76, 41A are not just roadways. They are communities of neighborhoods and farms that are being changed forever. Developers are going into our countryside, buying land, requesting zoning changes to R2A, R2D, R3, R4, and putting up as many dwellings and units as they can to maximize their profits at the expense of all of the residents living in these communities. Most of these areas do not have the infrastructure to support these developments. Traffic congestion has become a problem. Many schools in the southern part of the county are extremely overcrowded. 7 schools are over 95% capacity, and 2 are over 100%. It makes no sense to add to the problems without fixing the ones that already exist. Public transit services do not go past the Sango Walmart. Many of these new developments are outside city limits and rely on volunteer fire service. We hear about how Nashville has an affordable housing problem, and while I sympathize, it is not Clarksville's problem to solve, especially at the expense of our existing communities. Attracting new businesses that bring in more revenue is important, but that depends largely on the attractiveness of the area, our neighborhoods, our schools, and our communities. We need smart growth to make sure this is a town where people want to live. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now call our January 7th, 2019 meeting to order. Again, commissioners, just a reminder, your microphones are hot. Mr. Jeff Tyndall, if you'll come up. We have 3 zoning cases before us tonight. Our first one is CZ 25-2018, application of C&H properties from AG to C5. Mr. Tyndall.
Thank you, Mayor. Just give me a moment to kind of situate myself up here. A little different surroundings today. First, I'd just kind of like to make a statement for the Regional Planning Commission. Over the past 2 or 3 months, not just in the county, but also in the city, there's been a lot of controversial cases, and there's been a lot of misinformation that's been passed around, both via email, social media, and other methods. And I would just like to say that the RPC's doors are always open. They're always open for the public, for commissioners, for council folks. If you just want to have a better idea of what's going on, how to read the ordinance, how to see what we do behind the scenes, please just stop by, give us a call. I think we could go a long way to kind of dispel on a lot of the myths that are getting spread pretty quickly out there. With that said, we have, is it on? I'll just click. Three zoning cases before you today. The first one today, CZ 25, 2018. The applicant is C&H Properties, Hollingsworth Oil, care of Dan Newbill. It's 3 acres, currently zoned ag, requested to go to C5. It's technically not an extension of the existing C5 to the east because that private drive is a 25-foot strip in between these two properties. There's C4 directly to the west out there as well. You'll also notice that these ag properties off the private drive sort of have a white line around them. These are in county jurisdiction right now. Everything else to the south, the C4, the M1, the C5, the ag to the east, those have all recently been annexed into the city as part of the athletic complex. Rossview Road is also now under city jurisdiction for access control and maintenance. The property fronts on Rossview Road, now Hancock Road, 820 feet west of the Rossview Road International Boulevard intersection. There's an existing church facility that was recently sold out there and a vacant lot. The rezoning request would allow for the requested convenience store and strip retail center. It is within the UGB. Early versions of the sheet said it was in the PGA. It was until just recently, but it's now in the UGB out there. Property's on the right here, right where you see that trash can. That's a private lane going back. The property's immediately on the right. Hancock's just out of the photo to the left. The interstate's at the back here. There's the entrance, one of the entrances to Hancock Tire, directly across Rossview/Hancock Road. There's the existing church site that will be torn down as part of this application. This is looking back towards the interstate, going the other direction. Property's on the left. It is in the Rossview planning area. The impacts are proposed with increased traffic, light, and noise. Staff recommended approval based on the facts that the proposed zoning request is consistent with the adopted land use plan. The C5 zoning request is not out of character considering C4 and C5 zoning districts are in the area. The C5 zoning classification is the highway arterial commercial district, and this property fronts Rossview Road, State Route 237, which is an arterial highway, and it is less than 1,000 feet from Interstate 24. There is adequate infrastructure that serves the site. No other department comments were received except for the fact that since it's still in the county, sewer extension will have to go through city council.
Any questions of Mr. Tyndall? At this time, do you want to do all three of them to make it easier for you, and then I'll do the public hearing
I don't
on
mind. We can take breaks in between. I think there might
okay,
be.
well, if you're okay, we'll
okay
go
with
into
that.
public hearing. At this time, we're going to go into public hearing to hear comments regarding CZ 25, 2018 application to C&H Properties from AG to C5. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on behalf of this application? Anyone to speak on behalf of CZ 25, 2018? Anyone to speak in opposition to CZ 25, 2018? Anyone to speak in opposition? All right, we're now closing the public hearing on CZ 25, 2018. Mr. Tyndall, CZ 26, 2018, application of Krukenberg LLC from R1 to R2D.
Yes, Mayor, the applicant is Krukenberg LLC. Size of this property is 2.23 acres, currently zoned R1, and proposed to go to R2D. Just as point of reference, the R1A block that you see below this was recently zoned approximately 2 months ago at the county commission meeting. It is not technically an extension of the zoning classification, but it is a 1 or 2 family zoning classification anyway. Property fronts Highway 76, 330 feet east of Highway 76 and Little Hope Road intersection. The interchange to the interstate is just out of the picture to the left. Currently, the property has one single existing single-family property on it. The applicant is proposing duplexes and single-family homes. It is within the urban growth boundary. Back in 2016, this property was zoned to R1. There is a zoning history on this property. The only department comments received were the city sewer extension that would have to go through city council to serve this site. Potential impacts would be a slight increase in traffic, light, or noise. The historical estimates for 2.23 acres of R2D would be 4 lots or 8 total units if they were all duplexes. It also allows for single-family houses. It's in the Sango planning area. This is going down 76. The property is immediately to your right. Little Hope Road is to your left with Living Hope Church there on the left as well. This is the opposite view going back toward the interstate on 76. The property's on your left. This is looking with from the property across to Living Hope Church. And this is the subject property to the left. This is from Little Hope Road looking up towards the property. And this is the neighboring property to the east. It is not part of this current application. The staff recommends approval based on the fact that the proposed zoning is consistent with the adopted land use plan. R2 zoning permits the development of mixed-density single-family residence and duplexes on individual lots. It is encouraged to maintain a desirable mix of housing types throughout the community. Adequate infrastructure serves the site or can serve the site, and no adverse environmental issues were identified at this time, and the Regional Planning Commission also voted for approval.
Any questions of Mr. Tyndall? Commissioner Beal.
Thank you. Am I on? Can you hear me? Okay. 2 questions. My first question is, are these going to be rentals? That's probably
I don't think his microphone's on.
I don't think it's on either.
It is. Get a little closer.
There we go. Is that better? There we go. Can you tell me if these are going to be rentals? That's probably a question for the developer.
That's a question for the developer. Zoning doesn't dictate whether anything is a rental or an approval. We have even farmers who rent agricultural
Well, then I got
land.
2 more questions for you then. What kind of public comments did you get at the RPC meeting?
We record all our hearings verbatim. There was an applicant before it, Paul Krookenberg. He had a little to add at the beginning, asking if there's any questions. We had Mr. Boyd was there in objection to it, as well as Diane Larkins. And then there was rebuttal also from Mr. Krookenberg and I believe Ms. Larkins as well.
Okay. And can you tell me how the RPC voted as far as numbers go? Because I know that it was not
The
unanimous.
approval was 6-2. It was
Gotcha.
an approval.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to say that I'm very much against this rezoning. We had a similar zoning case, bigger, but it's less than a half mile down the road. Infrastructure cannot handle it. If you've driven down Highway 76, you know that this is not a good idea, okay? That road itself is hilly and curvy, and what you're not saying is the next intersection down at North Woodson. If you've ever tried to turn off of North Woodson onto 76, it is a nightmare, especially at night, especially when it's raining. This is not a good idea. I'll be voting no against it, and I encourage everybody else to also do that. Thank you.
Any other questions of Mr. Tyndall? Commissioner Knight,
Well, I just want to.
please speak into the microphone.
I'm pretty sure everybody can hear me. I just want to know, is there any traffic study being done or one that has been done already?
We don't require a traffic study for a property this small.
Okay.
We require it when the units get above
The only reason why I
the lot.
ask is it says
Or-
potential increase in traffic, so.
These are very they're generalities. You know, if you put 2 or 3 homes there, you're gonna have 2 or 3 homes worth of traffic.
Okay,
8 total units is what this could handle.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions of Mr. Tyndall? All right, we will now go into public hearing for CZ 26-2018, application of Krookenberg LLC from R1 to R2D. Is there anyone in the audience to speak on behalf of this application? Please come forward if you would. Please give us your name. Try to limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor Durrett. My name is Paul Krookenberg, and I'm the owner of Krookenberg LLC. And the first thing I need to do is I need to address a change of interest I'm representing for this particular property today. Since the December Planning Commission meeting, Krookenberg LLC has entered into a purchase and sale agreement with our neighbors to the immediate west, Tim and Mary McGlaccio. They've decided to continue pursuing rezoning to R2D, and I'll be speaking on behalf of them today. We both believe that R2D is currently highest and best use for this property. But with the Maglaccios' plans to restore the old home site, these preliminary plans are simply meant to show how this property works well zoned as R2D for future development. I'm in the wrong place. I just messed up Jeff's thing. All right. Sorry. Thank you. No, it's the next one. No. Thank you. I am 35. I can work technology okay. I promise. All right. I didn't know Mr. Tyndall was going to actually introduce this, so I wanted to just go over the generalities of the property as well with you guys. It is 2¼ acres. We have a 4-building, 7-unit density for the proposed zoning. It is located in Montgomery County's urban growth zone. Planning Commission recommends approval. No objections from any municipal organizations and no objections from TDOT. As you can see here, we are well within the CMC Growth Plans UGB right here, and we're about 7 seconds of a drive into the county. It's very close to city limits. This was our preliminary layout for the site. After meeting on site to confer with TDOT Representative Don Wilson this past summer, we concluded that a single private entry at the bottom of the hill is essential to the success of the project and roadway. Our intention was to leave the entry point to the property at approximately the same location it's been for 60+ years. As usual, any developer that pursues TDOT site approval for this property must address line of sight concerns that TDOT has through the site design process. As you can see in this layout, we had a single-family residence as a buffer to the Maglaccios and 3 subsequent luxury duplex units planned with a private drive entry in the same location as it is now. And this was essentially our plan, was to bring that drive in exactly the same place. It can be moved to the bottom of the hill next to the Maglaccios Drive if TDOT deems it necessary. But TDOT has ultimate say on the private drive location and line of sight for highway entry. A joint access driveway agreement must be put in place for this property to service multiple homes per TDOT regulations. Finally, this property is on a hill and the topography dictates that runoff must be directed to the front of the property toward the highway ditch with swales and proper grading between the structures. This is an elementary part of all building and development. So as you can see, the new drive on this preliminary site plan was designed exactly where it was on the old house. This is the approximate line of sight, as Commissioner Bill brought up. There is a hill. The top of the hill is around this area. TDOT would need to actually do a line of sight study before anything was passed on this particular design. And then you have around 1,000 feet total line of sight for this project. This is also greater than or equal to the line of sight distances of Little Hope Road. And then the final slides are simply the TDOT driveway regulations that apply to this particular property.
Thank you, Mr. Krugenberg. Any questions of Mr. Krugenberg? Commissioner Beal?
Are these designed to be rentals?
Originally, no. They were going to be luxury condos for sale.
Gotcha, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Krugenberg. Anyone else in the audience to speak on behalf of CZ 26, 2018? Anyone else to speak on behalf? Anyone in the audience to speak? Oh, somebody raise their hand. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see it. Please come forward.
Well, just as
Excuse me, ma'am. If you want to speak, you're going to come up to the microphone and give us your name.
Okay, I'm Leslie Burdine, and I live at 2675 Gun Road, just down the road a bit from here. And this is an area I pass through every day to and from work. Love the area. I personally do not find there to be a huge, great disadvantage to our community in bringing in luxury condos. I certainly would want those to be up to par, and I certainly know that Krugerberg homes are, and it would be no less. I do understand, fighting for what you want, what you believe in your little community, but I just do not see how this can be detrimental. With the one house that's sitting there now that's fairly run down and not lived in to my knowledge, I believe this would be a good thing for our area, not necessarily a bad one, and not providing a whole lot of weight for traffic and things like that. Also, I know that with the Maglaccios now owning the property, this kind of seems to be a moot point because, they're asking for zoning for this, yes, future developments, but their plans are not to develop it, to my knowledge. And I know that the Boyds own similar land that butts up to their land that is zoned in a similar fashion that could have multifamily residences on it as well. So I don't see how, having it on one side of the road is any different than having it on the other, especially when this side of the road is the one that doesn't want it as badly as they don't. I get it. I don't want 300,000 apartments either. That brings in a lot of traffic, but that's not what we're talking about here at all.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience to speak on behalf of CZ 26, 2018? All right, anyone in the audience to speak in opposition to CZ 26, 2018? Please come forward.
I'm Keith Boyd, 4583 Toby Darden Road, Adams, Tennessee. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners, for allowing me this time to speak. I'm here to speak against the zoning change. During the 70s and 80s, I was on this property many times while Mr. and Mrs. Plummer ran a store and had a small orchard there. During that time, traffic was light and at vastly lower numbers than is seen now. This lot sits just east of a blind rise in the roadway, and traffic headed toward Clarksville tops the rise and is at once alongside the property. The entrance to this property lies just 420 feet from the crest of the hill. The westernmost corner is only 520 feet from the crest. From my TDOT research done when the new emergency room was built 1/2 mile away, I know a 500-foot sight distance is a required minimum for permitting of an entrance. Traffic frequently comes over this hill in long lines like freight cars behind a locomotive. And drivers making a left turn toward Clarksville to exit this property will have to be on their toes given the short sight distance to oncoming traffic. The traffic assessment, which I have with me, done for proposed apartments a 1/4 mile away in October 9th, 2018, indicated a 33-second wait time to turnout during peak periods. This earned a D rating and was calculated using 2-year-old data, which TDOT says has already significantly increased. This material had to do with safety problems. My next point pertains to the community and how this proposal of duplexes does not fit here. In this area east of Exit 11, we're a community of single-family homes and farms. That has worked well and can be seen in the 517 signatures on the petition against apartments there. At this time, I would like to express my appreciation to Commissioner Pritchard. Please correct me if I misspeak, but I believe she told how we were an old established community of homes and farms which deserve to remain as such. When I spoke before the Regional Planning Commission on this matter recently, I was amazed to receive 2 votes against the zone change. When I had spoken before previously on the apartment zoning, we received 0 votes in short order. This time there was a long, uncomfortable pause with call for motions coming twice before any motion was made. We did not get a majority of the votes, but in light of the previous experience, it felt like a win. I can easily understand developers' wishes to put the greatest number of dwellings in a high-demand area to maximize profitability, but this model is inconsistent with our community and does not fit the character which has existed here for decades. We are an area of single-family homes and farms. There's no zoning of this type here, and it does not fit. And Mr. Krugerberg saying it was 7 seconds out of the city, I wish he would meet one of the deputies as he makes it in 7 seconds from the city limits to that property, because he'll be traveling at a very high speed. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak in opposition to CZ 26, 2018? No, ma'am, you're going to have to come forward to the microphone. If you would, please give us your name and address.
My name is Grace Mitchell, and I live at 3374 Brownsville Road. My family is military, and we're looking for a nice, quiet place to retire to. And we thought we found it, but if this goes through, we're going to pack up and move. But I don't know if people who can live out there, if they could come and voice their opinion of this, can we do that?
Yeah, you have 3 minutes if you want to speak in opposition to it, as long as you
Yes,
keep
sir.
your remarks civil.
I was born and raised out in the country, and we've had the exact same thing happen. They want to come in, they put in a few duplexes and stuff like that. Next thing you know, they're putting in apartments, and drugs went up, crime went up. We had no issues before, and within 15 years, that place is a complete dump. And I don't like living in places like that. That's why I moved out to Sango. So I was just wondering, they're saying, oh, we're not doing apartments now, but they were talking about it, but they're not wanting to discuss it now, and I don't understand why. Because they want to, everything they want to do, they're not wanting to address it all now. I don't understand why we can't address it now and not little piece, little piece, little piece, and next thing we know, the whole place is overran with apartments and problems and everything else. So can we just address all of it instead of just duplexes? Because we know apartments are coming later, because they already said something about we're going to put apartments in. So is there a way we can discuss that?
This is a specific parcel of land that a specific owner has requested a specific zoning classification. If you're speaking of the one that was prior to that, that was a larger tract of land, that's totally up to that property owner's rights to be able to petition this body and the Planning Commission for a zone change.
Okay, and I also, when I put out a little tiny sign where when I have to stop to read that sign, I almost got hit 5 times to figure out where this is being held at. And it took me 3 weeks to figure out how to be able to stop to read that little bitty sign on the side of the road.
Well, that's something Mr. Tyndall would have to address. They're the ones that put the signs out.
Because that's a good way to get somebody killed. Even getting out of the vehicle to try to cross the road to read the sign. That was very dangerous. But I would just want to know, if they put in the duplexes, would that cause future problems for the people who currently live there?
I can't answer that question for you.
Well,
I think it's been said that
because the traffic there is extremely dangerous, and I don't see why we put in houses that that's not going to cause any problems when there's already issues with the traffic there, especially at school trying to get buses and stuff out of there. My daughter's special needs, and I have to take her to school every day. So I know what the traffic's like going through there, and I know how it is trying not to get hit there. And the guy was right, when the weather's bad, it's crazy there. We moved here when it was snowing last year, and I thought for sure it would get nailed, because an 18-wheeler can fly over the hill behind me while I'm trying to stop and turn, because you can't see nothing over there.
Okay.
I'm just worried about the safety of us and all that new traffic they might be bringing.
All right, thank you. Anyone else in the audience to speak in opposition to CZ 26, 2018? Yes, ma'am, please come forward.
My name is Deborah Moore, 3785 Pondywood Road, Adams, Tennessee. One thing that I think the commissioners need to understand about the location of the road is that this is a main road for farmers to bring in their grain in semis. And you're talking about a limited site. There's no way a semi loaded with grain can stop in that short notice from the crest of that hill, that bump, whatever you call it, it's not really a hill, to where that driveway is. So this is going to be a safety factor for farmers coming in that road. Secondly, I think one of the things in my talking with people out in the community and even out as far as where I live is this. Once you as county commissioners vote to make this open for multi-families, there's no going back. And you can no longer dictate what can and cannot go in that area. I don't know that anyone really has a problem with what's going to come in now, those 8 units. What we're concerned about, what does it open up for the future? And how many of you would want that to be opened up next to where you reside, where your home is? And I think those are 2 things that are getting overlooked by many people. And we've got to address that. So I just ask you to consider that as you think about it. Do we really want to open up a whole new area by rezoning it so that it's going to then access? I mean, right now, there are only 3 ways for us to get crops. And agriculture, believe it or not, as much as your commercial stuff is growing in this county, agriculture is still real big. And right now, we can't get in exit 4 any longer in a timely way. Now exit 8 is beginning to get shut off, and now you're going to shut off exit 11 until there's hardly any way for farmers in a timely way to get those crops over to load on the barges and get them out of the city. And farmers pay taxes just like everybody else on their income. So I ask you to please consider not rezoning this area.
Thank you. We will now close the public hearing on CZ 26, 2018. Ma'am? Well, I'll allow you to speak. If I allow you to speak, I'm going to give Mr. Krugenberg an opportunity to speak as well. Yeah, if you would, please come forward to the microphone.
Hello, my name is Daphne Billingsley. I live at 714 Ashwood Drive. It's very close to the area that we're talking about. And I have returned to Clarksville. I lived in Nashville for the last 13 years, but I lived in Clarksville previously. And I really, really liked the place where I lived when I was here before. I lived in the New Providence area. And what I see in that area in the time since I've left is deplorable in some ways. That is one of the things that I think people have talked about in changes. None of us can predict the future, but we can look at what we've seen. There are areas in the New Providence area that were vibrant, were well kept, and are now essentially urban blight over time of neglect and different standards changing in the neighborhood. And I think that is one of the things that the citizens of our community are concerned about. Also, having been in Nashville, I hear about luxury condos, seen that. Also seen in Nashville apartments turned into condos because of the profit that was involved. I also know that there are Airbnbs and there's ordinances against it in Nashville that can't be monitored. And you have essentially not just month-to-month renters, but you have different people every night in homes. And that's something that, you know, people own the homes. That can happen with a condo that someone owns, and you have no way to really regulate that kind of thing. But the chances in a small rural community where we live, where there are established families who live there, we know what has happened. In the time that I left Clarksville, went to Nashville and came back, the area that I live in now, in the Sango area, has remained the way it was, enough so that I felt comfortable to buy a home there. The area that I left, I would be concerned about even renting there now. And I would hate to see that happen to this area. There are lots of areas for commercial revitalization that can be used for that. I understand you're saying condominiums now, but I also know how what is thought to be progressive thinking initially can really, really change to something much different than what was intended. So I would hope that the commissioners would not vote for this zoning change, because I do believe that there are a very large number of tax-paying homeowners in the community that do not want that change. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Krugenberger, do you have anything you'd like to add? Typically, we allow 3 from each side. We allowed 4, so I'm going to give you an opportunity if you'd like to speak. Again, your comments are limited to 3 minutes.
Absolutely. Any change can be extremely difficult for people, especially when you spent your entire life in the same location. And over the past 40 years, the main opposition to this rezoning, the Boyds, Keith Boyd and Diana Boyd Larkins, they've watched the farming community that they grew up in turn into a bustling and populous suburb. The interstate to the immediate west of their property has certainly hastened the growth, but even they've seen the inevitable future. The Boyd Partnership has already rezoned 47 acres of their farm to C2, a zoning capable of being developed into the same multifamily housing they purport to be against. Krugerberg LLC and Tim and Mary Maglaccio are certainly not stressing our existing infrastructure or harming our neighbors by rezoning an inconsequential 2 acres that doesn't even abut the Boyd's property. Mr. Boyd and Ms. Larkins, you're not community activists. You're protectionists who are fighting this rezoning as a proxy battle against other developers' projects.
Let's don't get personal.
Let me be explicitly clear on this subject. You don't speak for the majority of Sango residents. You don't speak for your neighbors, the Maglaccios. You don't speak for our Sango neighbors who love their low and no property maintenance lifestyles. And you don't speak for the construction workers in our area who are positively affected by Krugerberg projects. Sango residents and those that wish to be a part of our community want sensible and beautiful developments that increase property values and quality of life here. We heard anecdotes confirming this at the December 19th community meeting held at Whitewood Farm that Mr. Beal actually came to, and I very much appreciate you coming to that, Mr. Beal. You've erroneously associated R2D, R3, and R4 zoning requests with low-income housing, and are fighting against a community-minded, responsible luxury developer and builder in Krugerberg LLC. We shouldn't be lumped with any other builders or developers, and the Maglaccios should have the right to sensibly rezone their property just the same as the Boyd family did years ago through this same government body. The Boyds have changed their story over the past few months from anti-R4
Mr. Krugenberg.
to anti-multifamily to anti-duplex. Yet they're happy to keep their 47 acres zone C2 and build any of these units or get top dollar for the land when they go to sell. The Maglaccios and supporters of Krugerberg LLC ask that the commission would see through these weak arguments, take a hard look at the hypocritical and protectionist position the Boyd Partnership speaks from.
Mr. Krugenberg, I'm going to stop you right there.
And proceed with this rezoning.
I'm not going to allow you to continue to attack. Sorry.
Thank you. That was not an attack.
Thank you. All right, at this time, we're closing the public hearing on CZ 26, 2018.
Mayor.
Mr. Tyndall?
Can I make one final comment, please?
Sure.
I would just like to say that I have talked to probably hundreds of residents in this area that do not want this. I have not talked to one person that was in favor of this, not one. I answer my phone, I respond to every single email. Nobody wants this in this area for the reasons that I've already said. Thank you.
Thank you. We're closing the public on CZ 26, 2018. Now into CZ 27, 2018, application to Krugenberg LLC from R1 to R4. Mr. Tyndall.
Thank you, Mayor. And just as an anecdote to add food for thought for the commissioners, these are some numbers that the Regional Planning Commission has put together in the last week. We counted our 10-year trend of development, type of development we're seeing, and the type of the amount of density we're seeing. Even though, for instance, R4 allows for 15 units per acre, we historically see about 11.9 units because once you take in parking lots and infrastructure. By 2039, over the next 20 years, it's projected that Montgomery County has to absorb 85,000 more folks. That's from the University of Tennessee, Knoxville Boyd Center for Economics. If we continue at a pace of R1 and R1A only rezonings, we would chew up over 20 square miles over the next 20 years, which is equivalent to about a fifth of the current size of the city of Clarksville. So just want to let everyone kind of keep that in the back of their mind when projects like this come forward. And those are accurate numbers to Montgomery County. The next application, also by Krookenberg LLC, CZ 27, 2018-19, 3.05 acres off Excel Road, just south of Old Excel Road. Currently zoned R1, proposed to be zoned R4. It is an extension of the zoning classification. As you see, there's R4 directly across the street, Excel Road, 730 feet south of Old Excel intersection. There's one single existing family residential home on the site, and the applicant's request is for a multifamily residential development. It is within the UGB. The only department comments received were again from Seward, where City Council must approve any sewer extensions for this project. Proposed impacts from this type of development would be an increase in traffic, light, and noise to the region. Historical estimates, as I just mentioned, for 3 acres would be 36 units. It is in the Sango planning area. Step you through the pictures here. This is Excel Road going south. The property is immediately to your right here. You can see the other multifamily across the street. I apologize, I forgot the name of that development, but I've been through there a few times. And Woodlawn Apartments, thank you. The property here a little further down on the right. This is turning back Excel Road looking north. You can see our sign in front of the property, and this is the property in question with the single home on it. This is the property to the left of that property. This is again immediately across the street. It's a series of quadplexes. And this is the property to the right. There's about 3 homes to the right, almost identical as you continue back up toward 41A. The staff recommended approval based on the fact that the proposed zoning request is consistent with the adopted land use plan. The R4 zoning request is an extension of the existing R4 zoning district to the northeast. It's encouraged to have increased residential density and proximity to goods and services. In this case, it would be at the intersection of 41A and Excel Road. And it's encouraged to maintain a desirable mixture of housing types throughout the community. Adequate infrastructure serves the site or can serve the site, and no adverse environmental issues are identified at this time.
Any questions of Mr. Tyndall? Commissioner Harper.
Thank you. Mr. Tyndall, thank you for tonight. What's the site distance to the C5 and the C5 on the right and left of XL Road?
If I had a laser pointer. So you're talking from this site up to the corner up there?
Right.
I'm not exactly sure what the scale of this is, but it's a pretty straight shot, but I mean, I could get that for you.
That's, I mean, just for the commissioner's knowledge, that's the C5 on the right is a self-service storage, and the one on the corner on the right is actually a strip mall that's just been built, and the other C5 on the other side of XL Road is an F&M bank.
F&M bank, and then another
And then
center with pizza,
right.
karate, walk-in perfect area.
And the R4 that's across the street, which are condos, or I just view it as an extension of the R4 that's already existing across the street. But anyway, thanks.
Any other questions of Mr. Tyndall? Commissioner Beal?
Thank you. How many units can be put in this 3-acre parcel?
Sure. By our rules, 3 acres times 16 lots, so what was it, 42 or so, total, but like, again, our historical estimates, what we typically see, unless you're going to go up to 3 stories, you're never going to get to 15 or 16 units an acre. So if you're only doing 1 or 2 stories, 36 units in 3 acres is what you should expect to see. I'm sure Mr. Krukeberg will speak after me about that.
Anyone else? Any questions for Mr. Tyndall? Commissioner Woodruff?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. What concerns do the fire protection and volunteer fire department have with this rezoning?
Mr. Tyndall, did you get any comments from fire service?
No, sir. This would be in the county East Montgomery Volunteer Fire District. It's just outside the city limits. We send out comments. We did not receive anything back from fire department or EMA, but I do know they're here tonight if they wanted to ask that question.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Knight?
I was just going to ask, is that within the city limits?
City limits would be to the rear here, I believe.
Wouldn't be before us.
Let me see if the other map might show it better. I know the C5's in the city. I'd have to check if that Dorchester Circle there is in the city. I believe it might be, but
It's looking like it,
yeah.
it might be.
This whole area of Sango kind of goes out and back as you go down 41A with the city limits.
Any other questions of Mr. Tyndall? All right, we'll now go into public hearing for CZ 27-2018, application to Krukenberg LLC from R1 to R4. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on behalf of this application?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right, so like I said, I didn't know Mr. Tyndall had planned to actually speak about these particular projects, so I just went ahead and did short PowerPoints on them. We do have 3 acres at 160 XL Road, 36 to 41 unit density for the proposed zoning. It is located in Montgomery County's urban growth zone. Planning Commission recommends approval, and we have had no objections from any municipal organizations or County Highway Department. All right, so it actually abuts the Clarksville city limits and is well within the CMC Growth Plans UGB. There's a little nook where it does wrap around, and I believe what they were referring to earlier is it does go up and around and does encompass those additional townhomes across the street. It's located across the street from similar existing R4 development. Madison Street corridor and a short drive to PUD zoning in Wilson Green across Madison Street. It does not meet the Highway Department's threshold for additional traffic studies, and no objections have been made from any utility or municipal organizations. And this is our preliminary layout for the site. We do have it in a horseshoe shape. Some of the things that are not actually on our preliminary layout is that we do intend to gate this community. It will be under a condo association, and whether there's 1 entry or 2 entries like this has yet to be fully determined. But we do intend to put a gate on it, and it will be luxury condos. Any questions from the commission?
Any questions of Mr. Krukenberg? All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on behalf of CZ 27-2018? I don't know why Siri thought I said her name, but she did. Anyone else in the audience to speak on behalf of? I'll call on that group in just a second. Anyone else in the audience to speak on behalf of CZ 27-2018? Anyone in the audience to speak in opposition to CZ 27-2018? Please come forward to the microphone. Give us your name and address, please, sir.
My name is Scott Bastian. I live at 156 XL Road. I've lived over 20 years at that residence. Mr. Kirkenberg has pretty much developed most of that corner, as you can see, but the land is destroyed. There used to be a river that, if you look at the topographical, that he's buried, and now it's coming up in my property right there at 156, which is right next to where he plans this development. This area here has a riverbed that ran through it and comes across the road. And at this point, they're just going to bury it. And it's not flowing, so basically it's turned my property into a swamp. Some of the things I've noticed just in the last 90 days, there's been over 2 major traffic accidents where the road can't handle the traffic that you got going down there now. It's like someone who was talking about Highway 76 and grain trucks. CXL Road, they're running 6 or 7 down a day. There's nowhere for a bike path. I've seen bikes get hit just by trying to drive down XL Road. It's not a good idea to put any more development out there. He put in this Woodridge Estates and this Woodland Park, right? He's got both sides of me. It's going to be the 3rd side of my property now that he's covered up. And he's come in and developed the property 3 foot higher than the normal lay of the land. So his property is flowing right onto my properties. And I don't know, I've been in here and I've asked you not to do this, and there's nothing there at that corner. You talk about development, you have a storage area and some empty businesses and the shell. The bus doesn't come out there. There's nothing out there for anybody. I've had my property broken into. I can't go. I've had to put alarm systems and I've had to put cameras up because every time I leave my property, his cohorts and workers feel nothing better to do than go raiding my barns and stealing my property. I don't know. The only thing I can tell you is it's a bad idea. There's over 550 rentals available within 20 miles. I Googled it Sunday morning. There's 550 available right now. So why we need to put in 60 more in the county where you have there's nowhere for it to grow. I mean, without you taking XL Road and doubling the size of it, it's just not going to work. You're already backing up again. I mean, it used to back up all the way to my property. And it's almost that way again with that light when it sits there. I'm sure you've gone down there and seen it. Anyway, that's all I could say. He's been negative to all the properties that he's put around. He did a good job of making the driveway for this, what he's calling condominiums, which are apartments across the street from me, right facing my front window. Is that a coincidence? I think not. He has no drainage. I mean, I understand that he's in the city, across the street from the county, but he didn't have nothing done with the ditch. So all the water continues to flow to my property and to the south to the Taylor property. I'm surprised he's not in here tonight to say the same thing. But anyway, thank you for your time. I still have farm animals. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to get rid of my farm animals. I'm not allowed to have the chickens anymore.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience to speak in opposition to CZ 27, 2018? Yes, sir. Please come forward.
Thank you. My name's Leonard Jaco at 2606 Steeplechase Court, which is right across the little riverbed that the prior guy was talking about. That's a nice development, and it's in the city, and I've seen this property, and I said, well, maybe 8 units could fit in there, but the idea of 36, to me, is just, I just couldn't believe it. And as the previous guy said, the road is narrow, there's no place to go, and I don't think allowing 36 units to even be built there makes any sense. So if R2 allows 8 units, maybe that could fit there. There's none but single-family homes along that route. And then all of a sudden, because there's, the townhomes or condos across the street, there's no end to it. Just because that's there, you're saying that this abuts to it, therefore, let's put some more in there. The road's narrow, it backs up, it's dangerous, and I think R4 allowing 36 units really, and again, this talk about where this water's going, there is an old creek bed there. The property, our property on the other side of that bed is probably going to get a lot of this runoff water that's going to be redirected. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience speak in opposition? Yes, ma'am, please come forward.
Good evening. My name is Deborah Saunders. I reside at 2607 Steeplechase Court. That is the property abuts to the property in the city, the city of the proposed property. I want to piggyback on Mr. Jaco's comment in that the waterbed, the property has a slope to it. So my concern is in building these 36 units, which I personally feel that is unreasonable for that many units, that many people to be in this small space. But addressing the water slope, I'm concerned about the slope of the land and will that water come down onto our property? Now, it has in the past, and there have been some improvement by the property owners. So in building these, I want to make sure, I'm asking the commission to make sure that steps are taken that water will not flow down on our property. The other thing, with 36 units, with all those people, I don't hear anything that is being addressed about green space. That is a lot of people in one small area, and you don't even have a common area for children to come out and gather. There's no green space. So what that does is, when you have that many people, then we will get the children to come over onto our property. So that's an issue. The other concern that I have is there's a lot of trash along that property and old buildings. Will the property owner make sure that is cleaned up? The other thing, has a septic tank, sewer, and there's an odor. Will the builders take care of that and not leave that in the land? There are old refrigerators, stoves that has been used for a dumping ground. Will that be taken care of? There are a lot of issues with this property that I don't think the commission has really taken in consideration, especially when it comes down to the water. A lot of people are going to be affected about the water drainage. And as you know, when your property is damaged and that flood water comes in, insurance does not take care of it. And that is a personal expense to us. There was a gentleman here earlier that spoke about the water issue. Again, thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Mr. Tyndall, can you answer the question about, I think you said in the beginning that there was going to be an application for a sewer extension to this property?
Yeah, I can answer that question. That's the developer will likely tear everything out there. You obviously don't want to build above a septic system, and for something like this, and this is a question for Mr. Krukeberg, but tear it out, clean it up, fill it back in with clean fill. This type of development could not be supported with septic. You need almost an equal size property to have septic for this. So there is sewer on Excel Road or probably right to the rear of the property that they'd be able to tap into a manhole somewhere nearby at the developer's cost.
Is a site plan required on this as well?
A site plan will be
That
required, and building permits with the county will also be required.
That will address the drainage issue?
Yes, any future development will go through the county codes with the stormwater office to
Okay.
determine what the adequate volume and amount of drainage needed on there is. And I did just check on my phone. The city is immediately to the west of this property.
Okay, thank you, sir. We're now going to close the public hearing on CZ 27, 2018. Commissioners, we're going to roll right into our resolutions. Our first resolution is 1911, and without objection, we're going to talk about 1911, 1912, and 1913 all together. It's a resolution from the Board of Commissioners appropriating funds for architect design fees for a new middle school at the Kirkwood Complex, for design fees for a 12 classroom addition to West Creek Elementary, and a 12 classroom addition to Rossview Elementary School. Is there somebody from the school system that wants to address this? Mr. Summerall?
Appreciate it, Mayor. Commissioners, I'm happy to just come up here and answer any questions that you may have about any of the three resolutions that you have before you.
Commissioner Knight, do you have a question to Mr. Summerall?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
The design.
If you would, please speak into the microphone.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So the design for, well, first let me say thank you for coming up here and taking the opportunity to answer our questions. I really appreciate it. That being said, is the design similar to, for Kirkwood Complex anyways, is it similar to that of West Creek Middle School?
That is the prototypical design, yes, sir.
Okay, the reason why I ask is that we have schools right now that are coming to capacity, they're about 85, 95% capacity. So I want to ensure that we're building schools that will take a while before they come to capacity versus 3 to 5 years and they're at 95% capacity.
Yeah, we would agree with you, and through the planning process, this building and the high school that will come later are going to be designed and sited to allow for additions to the schools.
Okay. My next question is in regards to West Creek. West Creek is near and dear to me. I have 5 kids in the school system. So how soon will this, for the designs for West Creek, as far as from designing to construction, how soon will it be completed, the project?
Yeah, so if the funding stays on this schedule, it will open in January of 2021. For the 12 classroom addition, it'll be the identical addition as was seen at Barker's Mill.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Any other questions of Mr. Summerall? Commissioner Beal?
Thank you. One quick question. I have the same question that Commissioner Knight had, but about Rossview Elementary. Are we looking at the same date range as far as when this is going to happen?
Yes, sir. If these
Okay.
these resolutions would, both of those elementary additions would be on the same timeline for opening mid-year, but it would be in January of
Gotcha.
2021.
Thank you. And this school is currently at 114% capacity. Is that
Which school? Rossview?
Rossview Elementary?
Rossview Elementary, yes, sir.
Thank you.
These are just design fee dollars.
That's correct.
You need to understand that. They do not include construction. They're
Right.
design fees. Any other questions of Mr. Summerall? Commissioner Pritchard, I'm sorry. I'll come back to you, Commissioner Johnson.
Mr. Summerall, thank you.
If you would, please use the microphone.
Can you hear me, Mr. Summerall?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I did have one question. When this goes to whoever the design architect, do you consistently use the same design throughout the entire system? Or are you willing to look at additional or change designs to be more efficient, more financially efficient, more economical, more green?
Well, I appreciate the question. We use a design for as long as we think that the design is valuable from the education standpoint. For example, the Minglewood Elementary School was built 8 times. The last rendition was at West Creek Elementary. So all 8 of those buildings in there, we try to improve every time we build the building, and there's some cost associated with that. And so specifically to West Creek Middle, this is only the 2nd time, but we're very satisfied with the building and the way it is, the way it works from an educational standpoint. It is a great building, so it was the staff's recommendation to use that same floor plan again. And there's a savings in the architect fees for recommending that we reuse a set of plans.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As far as the funding for this, how much of this will come from, I know this is not necessarily for you, Mr. Summerall, but how much of this would come from the increase that we did on the wheel tax?
100%.
So there is
all paid in cash. We're not borrowing the money.
So there is enough in that revenue stream to handle this?
That's correct.
Second question is, has there been a definite go-ahead vote by the committee that is set to determine the location of future schools to go ahead with the Kirkwood project on the Kirkwood property?
Yeah, the Kirkwood we spent a lot of time looking at other properties to see, and we were unable to find anyone or any property that we could purchase. And so to stay on this timeline, our middle schools are already over capacity. We're at 102% of total capacity. And so to stay on the August of 2021 requires this body's approval this month. And then that only allows 17 months of construction, of actual construction.
Okay, because I knew that we were still looking at 3 different possibilities at last we met. So I just wanted to see exactly how that panned out. As far as this particular project, the Kirkwood project, in past efforts, we have found ourselves that at the completion of the construction of the school building, the property surrounding the school building had been sold or rezoned to accommodate neighborhoods. And as in the case with Oakland, where by the time the school was built and ready to open, there were new neighborhoods all the way around it. So we found ourselves with more people going to that school than we had previously planned. Has that been taken into account?
I don't think that's accurate. I think that the Planning Commission pointed us at that campus because of all the houses that were already approved to be built around it. So that school is sitting where we know that the population is going to grow.
And that is also the case with this Kirkwood project?
It is. Kirkwood is going to be, I would imagine, just like Northeast, just like West Creek, just like Oakland, all of the schools, they will have a tendency to draw residential growth. It's an attractive thing to the public to live near the school their children attend. I
understand that. I understand that. I just want to make sure that we are not going to have a school at capacity the day the doors open.
No, we don't intend to do that. So that zoning, I really don't have any idea. I think it's obvious that we're going to provide immediate relief to Northeast High School and Rossview High School. How much relief will be determined when we do that study. But it's not, so at Barker's Mill, I know we're talked about oftentimes. By the time we got that funding available, we opened that building and had portables on the classroom. That's not what we see here. This will absolutely provide relief to those 2 middle and high schools that are already overcrowded.
One last thing, and I promise I'm done. Have we allowed in this design for the increased size of gymnasiums and cafeterias and common area to where we can expand this building in the future so we don't find ourselves where we were with some of these other schools like Northeast High?
Yes, sir. In both instances, that was the decision of the team that worked on the project. So right now, a grade level in the secondary grades is 400 students. So 1,200, there are 3 grades in the middle school, 1,200 feeding directly into 4 grade levels in a high school, 1,600. It was the decision of the team that the buildings will be built at that size, so we're not underutilizing the building, but they'll be built and able to be expanded on to a 1,500 student, so 1 additional 100 students per grade level in the middle school, and then 2,000 at the high school, 4 grade levels.
Thank you. Commissioner Knight.
Promise, last question as well. So you mentioned cost. What is the cost of this particular design, and what is the, based off of cost analysis, what is the cost savings as opposed to utilizing a different design or the previous designs that were used?
Yeah, so the design fees, generally speaking, when we reuse a design, we pay half of the design fee, half the cost of going out and getting an architect with a blank piece of paper and letting us tell him exactly what we're looking for in a school. We would pay full fee for that, millions or more of dollars. In this instance, we'll only pay half of the design fee plus anything. So when I answer a question and say that we built Minglewood, although it's similar, it's a long way from West Creek Elementary, because every year we learn, how is this built? How can we be more effective with this building? How can we house more children? And so if we say widen the hallways, add an auxiliary gym, add a larger cafeteria, we have to pay the architect to do that. So every time we build the building, we try to make the building better, and we get a half of the design fee savings for doing that. So in this instance, with this middle school, we've only built it once. We paid the full fee. This time, we're going to pay half the fee plus any changes that we direct them to make.
But see, that's what I was asking, because essentially...
Microphone, please.
Sorry about that. So essentially, you're saying that it costs more to build attachments versus building one particular school that won't come to a particular capacity, has all the bells and whistles required, and is able to house kids for X amount of years without it coming to a particular capacity at 3 to 5 years, yes?
I'm saying that if all 38 of the schools of the Montgomery County school system look different, because every time we went and built one, we'd pay twice as much in design fees. That every time we can build, so we saved half of the design fee on all 8 of those elementary schools, and that savings allowed us to design the new elementary school, which is the Rossview design. We've used it 4 times, and if we get to that point here, we intend, at this point, we would intend to recommend that we build that again. It functions great for the kids. It's an efficient building, and it's very well received by the public.
Okay. Any other questions of Mr. Summerall? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Did you have a question, or you just scratching? Commissioner Hodges, were you just scratching? Okay, I'm sorry. All right, Resolution 1914, Resolution of Montgomery County Board of Commissioners approving amendments to the 2018-19 school budget. Is there someone here from? I think Danny's retired. Is Danny totally retired? No, there he is. He's still back there. Mr. Charlie Keene said hello to you.
Hello, I'm Marcia Demers. I'm the finance director, and I've been working on the budget, and would be happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone have any questions of Ms. Demers?
I can't hear her.
You can't hear her?
Hi, I'm Marcia Demers. I'm the finance director, and I've been working on the budget. Danny's here for support, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have on the budget amendments.
Any questions? This is really just the cleanup, moving stuff around.
Right. Primarily, it's the beginning, adjustment for beginning fund balance that we do at the beginning of the year. Everything on there was a positive adjustment to fund balance.
Any questions of Ms. Demarest? Thank you, ma'am. Resolution 1915, resolution appropriating funds for the purpose of employing 2 additional Deputy sheriffs to staff the 19th Judicial District Circuit Courtroom for Division 5. Sheriff, you want to touch on this briefly? I don't think this is any new money for us, is that correct?
Sir?
You go ahead.
Thank you and good evening, Commissioners. The purpose of this resolution is to add 2 additional deputy sheriffs for the courthouse. As you know, that the sheriff's office is responsible for security and safety at the courthouse. In 2015, the General Assembly added 1 new circuit court judge, and as you well know, just here recently another one was appointed, and that requires another deputy. We were able to absorb the first one, but we cannot absorb the second one. Whenever they're all on the bench, we have to have 2 deputies in that courtroom. So this resolution here accomplishes that, and the costs associated that with from now, February 1st to the end of the fiscal year would be $62,308, which is highlighted in the resolution, and for the full year is the $134,219.
Any questions of the sheriff? I apologize. The next one is the one that's not any new money.
Yes, sir. Well, I wish this one here was no new money as well.
This is new money. Any questions of Sheriff Fuson? All right. 1916, resolution to accept funds from the Clarksville Montgomery County School System pursuant to a Safe School Grants as part of the School Safety Act of 2018 to fund a new position as a SRO supervisor position. And
Yes,
this
yes.
is no new monies.
No, sir. Actually, it's some reoccurring funds from a grant that the school system got from the state, and the decision was made that we'll fund out of some of the money the school system got here a position of school resource officer supervisor to kind of be the liaison for school safety and security points with the school system and associated equipment with that.
All right. Any questions of the sheriff? All right, moving right along in our agenda, our next item is 1917. This is a resolution declaring intent of the Montgomery County to reimburse itself. Commissioners, this item is going to be pulled and will go back to the Budget Committee as a new resolution. The scope of this project will be changed, and so we're just going to pull this item and it'll go back to the Budget Committee and it'll be before you in February. Resolution 1918, resolution urging the General Assembly to support restoration of Register of Deeds Commission for collecting taxes. I know Ms. Ganay is here. Does anyone have any questions? This is really just a resolution of support asking for some fees to be reinstituted. Is that correct, Ms. Ganay? Yes, that's correct. Any questions of Ms. Ganay? All right, resolution 19-110, a resolution to adopt Montgomery County Committee structure revision as to term limits per the Rules Committee. 1919, did I skip one? Yes, oh, I'm sorry. There's a football game on. Resolution amending the budget of the Montgomery County Election Commission for additional deputy clerk position. Ms. Black, do you want to speak to this briefly, please, ma'am?
I was told to say go Tigers.
Okay.
Just kidding. I don't watch football, so I don't know what any of that means. I will be brief because I know y'all have been here a long time. I did my very best to reach out to each and every one of you to answer any questions that you had. Just a reminder to remind you of our conversation. The request is something that I would ask for in June. The need is there with the capacity of work that we have. We're doing our very best to try to get our head above water. The online voter registration was brought to us by the state and has been in effect since last year and has added an additional 500 new registrations a month. So it took our average from 500 to over 1,000. It's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of hands-on, and it's killing us. So that's the need. That's the biggest need. The timing, I know is bad because it's in the middle of a budget year, and I do apologize for that. I have a temporary worker that is staying on with me through the Senate elections that should hopefully start any time now. We're waiting on a writ from the governor on that. And so when that completes, she'll be with me almost a year. And for those of you that know the IRS, even though they're currently on furlough, they're still going to frown on us if we have a temporary employee that's been with us for a year that doesn't have benefits. So That was brought to my attention and told that I might want to go ahead and request this position now to avoid any sort of audit findings. So they're working 40 hours a week right now. It will essentially add benefits and obviously keep them on full-time for me. So I wouldn't ask for it if I didn't need it. Those of you that know me know that I do my very best to be as efficient as we possibly can. So that is still my goal. But I really do need one more person to help us try to get our head above water.
Any questions of Ms. Black? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, Resolution 19-110, a resolution to adopt Montgomery County Committee structure revision as to term limits per the Rules Committee. This went to the Rules Committee, and Commissioners, I actually asked the Rules Committee to look at this. There's 21 of y'all, and this is an effort to reduce some of the term limits that we have on some of our committees to allow commissioners to serve on different committees. Sometimes we get commissioners that can serve beyond their term limit, that they're elected for. And I think the Rules Committee, along with Debbie and Shelley, did a really good job of putting this matrix together. Now, I don't know if any of you have any questions about it, but it is an effort to reduce the term limits of the majority of our committees to allow other people to be able to serve on those committees. Any questions, Commissioner Beal?
Thank you. Can you tell me what the current term limits are for the Regional Planning Commission committee?
They are set by state law, I believe, aren't they, Tim? I think it's 6 years.
Okay, so we're changing it to 12? Am I looking at this correctly?
We're not changing that one because I think it's dictated by state law.
Some of these are required by statute, so none of those changed.
Gotcha. So this is staying the same. That one is.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I would ask that without objection from somebody that either we amend to exclude the E911 from the matrix or if without objection we will take it out of there. We need to do some work on that one. That board is kind of established by some state law guidelines. There's an interlocal agreement with the city of Clarksville, but we need to make sure that as we move forward in the makeup of that board as we are today, that our sheriff, our EMS director, those people continue to be on that concurrent with their office. Commissioner Harper?
Mayor, as a person that serves from this body on that, I have no objection to that whatsoever.
Okay. Well, without any objection, we will pull that E911 from the matrix. All right, Resolution 19-111 is a resolution regarding per diem compensation for commissioner participation in all committee meetings. This went before the Rules Committee as well. We feel like some commissioners have served on boards or on committees that they aren't compensated for. This will compensate commissioners for every appointment that you serve on. We have a couple of boards like 911 is not compensated for, Museum Board is not compensated for. By county, they actually compensate members, but this would compensate commissioners for any committee that you sit on. Any questions? Commissioner Gannon? It includes ad hoc committees? That's correct. Any questions? All right, Resolution 19-113, resolution to appoint interim to fill vacant Senate seat for District 22, Stewart, Houston, and Montgomery, created by resignation of Senator Mark Green. Commissioners, any questions on that? I skipped another one? Oh, I'm sorry. Resolution to modify the purpose of the Jail and Juvenile Detention Committee. Basically, Mr. Harvey, through the Rules Committee, rewrote the purpose of that committee to put it in line with what the committee's actual functions are. Any questions? All right, now 19-113. I've already read it, so any questions on 19-113? Commissioners, I will just briefly. The rules of filling that vacancy are kind of complicated. You should have in your packet right after the resolution, you'll have those rules. It's called Rule 8. And if you just look down through there, item number 4, prior to any voting on any of them, we have to nominate someone or several people. And so that will be our first step. Bullet number 5, it's really just self-explanatory if a member of the body chooses to accept a nomination. Rule number 6, we're going to allow, I think in fairness, all nominees to speak for 5 minutes. Rule number 7, that's going to be strictly a commission decision. That would allow you to postpone it to a subsequent meeting. And then really where the confusion may come in is under 8, and it really starts with, I guess would be the 4th bullet. If after 6 rounds of voting, no nominee receives a majority of the vote, after 3 additional tallies, all remaining candidates will be eliminated, save the top 3 places. So that would be voting rounds 7, 8, and 9. And then rounds 10, 11, and 12, if 3 candidates or places remain eligible and subsequently no nominee receives a majority of the votes after 3 additional tallies, then in such case only the remaining top 2 votes places shall be considered. And then 13, the next bullet, if no winner is determined after 3 rounds of voting on the remaining 2 candidates, which would be 13 and 14, then the county mayor shall break the tie. So I just encourage you to read those rules. We'll have paper ballots. They'll be posted. We'll have to pass the ballots to the end of the table, so it'll be a lengthy process, but I can assure you we'll stay within our rules. But just hopefully you can read those rules and not be confused by them, because I still am. Item 19-114, that is pulled. That will be brought back before us in February. There's still some work to be done there. 19-115, we're going to pull that as well to let it go back to the Personnel Advisory Committee. I talked to Mr. Swire, HR Director, today. There's maybe a couple of tweaks that need to be made to it, so as opposed to proving it and then coming back and amending it, we're just going to wait till February to do that. And Resolution 19-116, a resolution to amend the budgets of various funds for fiscal year 2019 in certain areas of revenues and expenditures. Mr. Taylor, you want to go through that briefly?
Yes, sir, I can do that. The first page on the Excel sheet after the resolution, this one was actually omitted from what was presented to the budget committee. It actually goes to the second page. The only 2 line items on there that were not shown to the budget committee were the $2,500 reduction in the grant revenue amended by the state. I believe that's for the WIC clinic, and the $1,226 in insurance recovery money at the bottom of that page. That was for an accident that the Ag Extension Office vehicle was involved in, and money we recovered from that. So with no objections, we'll include that with the resolution. On the next page, for county general fund budget, probably the biggest item down through there was on the second page there, $27,083, just a correction to the original budget for the airport authority contributions. Like I said, that's an increase of $27,083. At the bottom of that page, you'll notice the adjustment to the estimated fund balances for year-end fiscal year 18. The biggest one, of course, was the unassigned fund balance. I went back and looked through that, and there was over $6.6 million. The majority of that was around $3 million in savings in salaries and benefits we had throughout the year. And then I think it was a little over $2 million in some higher than anticipated revenues. Going to the next page is just drug control fund, just adjusting the unending fund balance for that in the amount of $45,739. The next page is just an adjustment to the ending fund balance for the highway department. Most of that is restricted. The $1,923,730 was the largest portion of that. Going to the next page, debt service fund. It's an adjustment to the ending fund balance as well, $1,931,000, adding to the ending fund balance at the end of fiscal year 18. Excuse me. Going to the next page, the capital projects funds. Majority of those are in regards to our current capital projects that are carrying forward throughout the year. One item to mention would be the $87,161. That was in regards to the historic Collinsville, just recording those assets that were donated to the county. That was the valuation that we had to just do a journal entry for that. And the last page, as far as the capital projects, that's just in regards to our latest bond issue, and that's just some of the adjusting entries we had to do for that as well.
Any questions of Mr. Taylor? All right, thank you, Mr. Taylor. On our reports, airport liaison, Ms. Pritchard, do you have a report that you'd like to give?
I do, sir. As per my visit to the Clarksville Regional Airport today, these are the present updates and the future outlook. The runway is completed and in use. I was informed by Assistant Manager Corey Bondurant that the lighting is being finished. Because of the downtime in building the runway last year, some of the business did fall off. Since the completion has been done and advertised, business is picking up, previous business is returning. Requests are being received every day if the airport is again open for business. Because of the improvements, larger planes are able to use our facilities. With the return of corporate traffic, our facilities should become very busy. With the hangars, Hangar 5 is being readied for the Austin P. Rotary Wing Training Program. The preliminaries for a new hangar being built for the airport use has been done, and physical construction should be started. Anticipated completion should be by the end of summer, weather prevailing. A need for additional hangars exists that can house additional fixed-wing aircraft proportional to the increase of business as a result of the additions and improvements of the facilities. And as for the events venue at the airport, the use of the events venue space is well booked and is continuing as a popular space for Montgomery County residents as well as corporate events from the area. Wags and Wings, along with the Marine Corps Osprey exhibition, was very exciting and initially successful. Events of that nature definitely contribute to the success of the CRA. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Harper, do you have anything on school liaison?
I do, Mayor. Thank you. Very quickly, let's buzz over this. And by the way, for the ball game tonight, go Blue Raiders. In the November report, the school board approved a Clarksville Police Department location on the Rossview campus, so you're aware of that. And then in December, Mark Nolan replaced Katie Olita as the CMCSS General Counsel. As you know, she was appointed by General Haslam, not General Haslam, I'm sorry, Governor Haslam, my mistake, as the District 19 Circuit Court Judge. Very proud of that. And also the other things were the 3 agenda items that we had, the resolutions on the approval of design fees for Kirkwood Middle, West Creek Elementary, and Rossview Elementary.
Thank you, Commissioner Harper. Nominating committee nominations. Chairman Gannon.
Thank you, Mayor. The nominating committee met today at 5:30. We have the following nominations that we will put into as a motion on the next meeting. Agricultural Extension Committee, a 2-year term, which will now be a max 2-year term. Sue Cooper, Commissioner Brandon Butts, and Joshua Johnson were nominated to serve their last 2-year term to expire January 2021. Jail and Juvenile Committee, 2-year term, which will now be a max 2-year term. Commissioner Josh Beal and Commissioner Jason Knight have been filling an unexpired term and are now eligible to serve their first 2-year term to expire January 2020. The Museum Board, a 3-year term, which is still a maximum 6-year term. Dr. Jennifer H. Johnston and Tommy Bates are eligible to serve their second 3-year term to expire January 2022. Fraser Allen has been nominated to replace Suzanne Langford for a 3-year term to expire January 2022. Nominating Committee, which is now a 2-year term, maximum 4-year term. In Geographical Area Number 1, Commissioner John Gannon is eligible to serve his second 2-year term to expire January 2021. In Geographical Areas Number 3, Commissioner Arnold Hodges, and Geographical Area Number 5, Commissioner Joe Creek, have been filling an unexpired term and are now eligible to serve their first 2-year term to expire January 2021. School Liaison Committee, which will be a 2-year term and a maximum 2-year term as well. In Geographical Area Number 5, Commissioner Camille Chandler has been filling an unexpired term and is now eligible to serve her first 2-year term to expire January 2021.
Any questions of Mr. Gannon? Under County Mayor nominations, Animal Control, Commissioner Joe Smith, nominated to replace Commissioner Garland Johnson, 2-year term, expiring January 2021. Tracy Albright Hogan, nominated to replace Amy Shaver for a 2-year term, expiring 2021. And Captain Scott Thornton, nominated to replace Sergeant David Odell, City Police Department, expiring 2021. Purchasing Committee, Commissioner Chandler's been filling the unexpired term, as well as Commissioner Pritchard, as well as Commissioner Beal, and as well as Commissioner Leverett. All those are now eligible to serve a 1-year term to expire January 2020. Rules Committee, Commissioner James Lewis, nominated to replace Commissioner David Harper for a 2-year term expiring January 2021. Commissioner Tangi Smith, nominated to replace Commissioner Larry Riccone for a 2-year term to expire January 2021. Commissioner Brandon Butts has been filling unexpired terms, now eligible to be nominated for a 2-year term expiring January 2021. And Commissioner Garland Johnson's nominated to serve his second 2-year term expiring January 2021. And Commissioner Loretta Bryant has been filling an unexpired term, is now eligible to be nominated to serve a 2-year term to expire January 2021. Under County Mayor appointments, under the Budget Committee, Commissioner Gannon, his appointment will run concurrent with his term as Mayor Pro Tem, September 2019. Commissioner Garland Johnson, appointed to replace Commissioner Larry Riccone for a 1-year term expiring 2020. Commissioner Ricky Ray has been filling an unexpired term and is eligible to be appointed to serve a 1-year term to expire January 2020. And Commissioner Charlie Keene is appointed to serve another 1-year term to expire January 2020. Under 911 Communications District Board, Commissioner Fuson, Chief Ainsley, and Chief Edwards all are nominated to serve a 4-year term expiring January 2023. And under the Museum Board, Commissioner, this is a change from on your notes, Commissioner Larry Riccone, appointed to serve a 1-year term as an ex officio term expiring January 2019. Stormwater Board of Appeals, these are all expiring in 2021. These first 3, Brian Trotter, replacing Nick Powell, a technical member, Brad Martin, replacing Eric Sims, a lay member, and Mark Cook, appointed to replace Matt Lyle, a lay member. Grant Shaw's replacing Leo Milan as a lay member, expiring 2020. Alan Caldwell, George Watson, and Stacy Calhoun are all replacing other members as lay members or alternates. Any questions about the mayor's nominations or appointments? All right, back to our agenda. You'll see your reports filed. Old business CZ 24 2018, the application of Maud Powers, that was pulled by the owner. You should have a letter in your packet that details that request. Any new business? Commissioners, we have just a few announcements. You're all aware that you should be aware that the application submitted for the vacant Senate seat for District 22 as of the deadline of January 2nd have been placed in your drop box. Any applications received after that date will be held and placed in your drop box on January 14th. You should all have found your ID badges located at your desk. They've been provided to you by Human Resources. Beginning in January, our Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Commissioner Gannon, District 1. And in February, it'll be Commissioner Keene, District 2, Commissioner Smith in March 3. I forget to ask people to do the pledge, and so that's a simple way to do it. So if your month is 1 through 12, you're going to lead us in the pledge. After we finish those 12, we'll go to 13, 14, and so on. But Commissioner Gannon, you will be leading us in the pledge next month. Just real briefly, I'd like to update you on the courthouse. And first of all, I just want to say a special thanks to all of our maintenance staff, all of our folks in risk management, Chief of Staff Truitt, Debbie, Shelley, and I hope I didn't miss anybody for just responding like they did yesterday. We know that on the third floor, right as you enter the big conference room, there was a valve up there that, for some reason, a cap came off the valve, and it allowed water to run out, and that water was about 190 degrees. It was a boiler pipe, so it was hot water. And so we don't know what time that started. We have heard that somebody went by about 9 o'clock and saw some lights flashing, but didn't call 911. I think we received a 911 call around 10:30 yesterday morning, and we immediately dispatched people. The fire department came. We had to kill the power. And so our damage, and I've kind of alluded this to you in an email, but our damage is really on the north side of the building, beginning on the upper level, the third floor conference room. It's going to be a while before we get back in that room, probably a couple of months, if not a little bit longer. All the carpet's destroyed. There's a lot of damage to the drywall and potentially some damage to the wood windows that are in there. A little bit of water got into the commission chambers. We've removed that carpet. So we may be walking on rubber pads when you go in next Monday night, but we will have our commission meeting there next Monday night. If you go directly below that third floor conference room, that's where accounts and budgets office was. We've had to totally relocate them. They are dispersed throughout the courthouse. Some of them are in a conference room that we had just completed for HR. Unfortunately, they're not going to be able to use that. I think you've got about 6 people in there.
Yes, sir.
And then upstairs on the 4th floor in engineering, there's a couple of vacant offices, and we've got folks there. And then down below that, our risk management, they're just kind of, they're having to work on getting this thing fixed, so they don't even need a desk to sit down at right now. But that we will find them a place as well. And then our PIO, Michelle Newell, she'll be moving up to the 4th floor as well. And we don't have any estimates on what that cost will be. As soon as we found out what was going on, we did get in touch with the local government insurance pool, and they had a representative there on Sunday. Their adjuster was there first thing this morning. The local government insurance pool has a contract with ServPro. They'd immediately dispatched ServPro. They probably were on scene by 12:30, 1 o'clock. I sent you a picture of the air mover that they have in there drying the building out, and they're doing an awesome job. And so as soon as we get a better understanding of what our costs will be, we do have a small deductible, but there may be some additional costs that we incur. And as soon as we have a cost on that, we will update you on those costs. Anybody have any questions about that? And lastly, I don't know if Mr. House is here. I saw him earlier, but I know a lot of his staff is here. Just really want to say thank you to the school system. I reached out to Mr. House yesterday and said, hey, we've got a problem. We may need to use your building. And he immediately got his people lined up, and they've been great to work with, and to our IT department for making this all happen tonight. And commissioners, I thank you for putting up with the inconveniences that you did tonight, but hopefully, unless something else happens, we'll be back in the courthouse on January 14th. So with that being said, we're adjourned. Thank y'all.